I see a lot of anxiety in millennials. I don't see as much in Gen X.
Okay.
I
Okay.
see other things in Gen X.
Oh. Okay, what do you see in us? I'm just curious now. I know we're off topic. I'm sorry, guys. We'll get back
Right.
to
And I
our
may be
topic.
biased. I love us Gen X. But I don't know. I see more. I didn't see Gen X in this context when they had littles. Okay, so I will
Okay.
give that caveat, right? Maybe we
Okay.
were all anxious too when we had little children. I wasn't. My friends didn't seem to be, but maybe that was the case. But yeah, I see more anxiety in millennial parents. Well, and also the world and society is different. Social media is much of a bigger factor now
Yeah, yeah.
and it was when, I gave birth the first time in 2005. I think that's when Facebook was launched in 2005, right? This was
Okay.
also new. So the climate is very different. And yeah, I don't see the same anxiety doesn't show up the same in Gen X women as millennial women. I'll say it that way.
Okay.
I won't ever say one has it and one doesn't,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it presents differently.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to Unapologetically 50 Plus, where we talk about real life, real healing, and real growth, especially for those of us 50 and over who are stepping into our next chapter with intention. Okay, what happens when the titles we've carried, wife, mother, caregiver, no longer define us? In this episode, I talk with therapist Tori Profit, founder of Next Chapter Collective and the Soft Landing Circle, about the hidden grief, guilt, and the surprising ways women can rediscover themselves after decades of caregiving. With over 20 years of marriage and experience in motherhood, step parenthood, and adoption, Tori brings both clinical expertise and lived wisdom to guiding women through identity shifts and creating life on their own terms. But before we get started, I have one huge favor to ask. If you find any value or enjoy the content, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I truly appreciate your support. Okay, you guys, let's get this conversation started.
Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show.
Hey, Tori, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining me and being patient with my little, technical
Sure.
issues. So, Tori, your introduction, was that enough, or is there something else you want to add to that? Because you have some experience behind you, lady.
Yeah, and I'm in my own season of reinvention too, so being a
Okay.
therapist and then adding on this other element of working outside the clinical box. But
Okay.
you covered it all.
Okay, okay, but we are going to talk more about your soft landing circle and your other, I guess, entrepreneurial businesses that you are venturing into. So I'm excited to hear about that. So you and I met on the WhatsApp group. Is it, which one is it? Is it the,
We are in a few together.
yeah, yeah, we are in a few together, but once I got to know you and what you were doing and your clinical background, I was like, she is a very interesting lady and has a lot of knowledge and wisdom. Of course, on the clinical side, and I'm sure helping many women, and you said your range is from 40 above, and mine is, talking to and getting to know women and all their glory 50 and above. So, one thing I do want to ask, so when you're dealing with women 40 versus in their 50s, is there a big difference in the way they're looking at life?
Mm. Well, and so I I think so with my coaching community, I
Mhm.
focused on 40 and above because I was not yet as close to 50 as I am now.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
the 40-year-olds, they seem like such babies to me. And they're
Necklace.
newer, a lot of them. I know that
Uh,
perimenopause onset is different for every woman, but a lot of
right.
them are just very new into that process. And so that's one of the biggest differences I see. But also it seems like the over 50s are in a little bit more stable sense of identity.
Okay.
If I had to characterize any differences, that would be
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, because yeah, 40 just seemed because I'll be 50. How will it be now? I'll be 59 in December. So I was like, how old will I be? So
Okay.
yeah, there is, my husband, we were walking yesterday. My husband was like, we are we are damn near 60. I'm like, look, you're just being disrespectful now.
Right?
Just
Oh my
stop, just stop. You're being disrespectful now. I don't want to think about that. But I mean, that's the reality of it. That is the
sure.
reality of it. And my own experience as I've gotten more mature, I have less tolerance for a lot of things. Not that I have less patience, I have less, maybe
Mhm.
it's the same one and the same, but I don't want to be around, I guess, negativity. I don't want to be around
Mhm.
as much as I can. I know it's all around us, but I try and really keep from those that negative energy. And I
Sure.
just want to be around women who, excuse me, who are positive, who are trying to do things, who are, looking at their life differently and who are open to trying new things. If you're
Mm.
stuck in your ways and you can't, you know, um, at least try and see things differently, then I'm like going, well, maybe maybe you're not my cup of tea. So that's
Yeah.
why one thing I loved about you is that you just have this amazing idea with the soft landing circle. And I just, like I said, we got to talk about that because it's so important. I never thought about that. I did think about it, but not in the aspect of the way you put it, the way you're going about trying to help women. But we'll get to that. So let's start by talking about identity and the role women hold for decades. So from a clinical perspective, how do long-term roles like wife and mother shape a woman's identity? And what happens to them psychologically when these roles begin to change or fade?
hmm I love this question, and it's a good one to start with. And so I would say, in my training as a licensed marriage and family therapist, we're really trained to look at the person inside of the larger system.
Hmm.
And so I'll begin to answer your question by saying when we're born into a role, whether
Hmm.
that's in a family, a community, or, however, whatever the circumstances are of our birth, we are born into a role.
Okay.
And then as we go through our developmental process as children, adolescents, young adults, and so on,
Hmm.
identity and roles shift, right? And so they kind of can shift together. And so when we're talking about a long-term role like wife and mother,
Hmm.
um, where maybe other roles in your life are not shifting quite as much, you've been in this one for a very long time,
Hmm.
it can become easy to over-identify with that role.
Okay.
Um, and then when you sense the role is shifting, like when you move from having, let's say, small children to adolescents to young adults and then launching,
Hmm.
it'll be easy to experience an identity void,
Hmm.
right? That role has been there for so long, you've over-identified with it perhaps. And then when there's no one left to take care of, it can feel a lot like a void.
Mm.
And so this reforming your identity in midlife is very normal. Reforming your identity all throughout your life
Yeah.
is normal, but transitions are always hard.
Mm.
Right? Because if you think about the point where one thing is what it is, and then it's not yet what it's going to become, that point where they're touching, right? That
Yeah.
little edge,
Hmm.
there's discomfort there, and it can be very confusing.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So do these changes show up differently for women who are empty nesters versus those who are still in caregiving roles?
Sure. And, I would say each of those has their different task and challenge, right?
Mhm.
If you're
Right.
still caregiving, but, well, and also would change, I guess, depending on the age of the woman too, right? Some of us start our roles as wives or mothers very young, some of us older.
Right. Right.
And so you may physically be ready to be done caregiving and mentally ready, but your circumstances are different. And
Right.
so, yeah, that would be very individual for each person, but I would definitely say that there is a difference.
Okay. Okay. Um, do you find when you're talking to women that are like you are talking about those differences that you just mentioned? So you have a woman who started motherhood maybe at late 30s versus someone who started in their late 20s.
Mhm.
Do you see a difference in how their attitude is? Or could there, I mean, is there a difference in attitude maybe? Because maybe someone who is, who has a 5-year-old and they're 40, you know,
Mhm.
they're tired. I mean, because it doesn't matter when you hit 40 or 40, 45, you start to slow down. I don't care how young your child is, or how old your child is, you do start to slow down mentally. You're thinking about possibly retirement, maybe
Mhm.
45, 50. You're thinking about retirement. Because I know a lady and a gentleman, actually, he had his first child, and I know this is different for men, but he had his first child at 50 and his wife was 40. So there's a 10-year age gap. So yeah, for him, it's like, yay. And, he seems to be yay. And you could tell she's just like, and then she had her second one, I think at 42, 43, something, some age difference
Mhm.
like that. But you could see how she's just like already. And I'm like, girl, your child, your baby's only 2 years old and you're 42, 43.
Yes,
So
yes.
how
Yeah,
does
I
that,
see those differences.
yeah,
I see the differences. And they're like there's different ways you can talk about it. Like you can see, so an older parent often brings to the table patience. Maybe they have more patience than energy,
yeah,
right? Maybe they have there's perhaps more maturity in their mindset and the way they look at things.
right, okay,
Um, and so as a therapist, I work with pregnant and postpartum moms, and most of them are like early 30s.
okay.
And so my clinical population deals with anxiety. So that's what I see.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know about, all moms, but it seems like a
Yeah.
lot of moms, young moms, are very anxious.
Hmm.
And so with older moms, who I do see some of, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing that they've moved past that quite a bit, past the worry, even if they
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
young children.
Yeah.
They're on to something else
Yeah.
developmentally because they're older.
Right.
So
Okay.
just
Okay.
interesting.
I have
Yeah.
a question about that, and this is
Yeah.
totally off topic, but I have a question about that. Do you see more anxiety in Gen X versus the later generations?
The younger,
The
yeah,
younger generations?
I see a lot of anxiety in millennials. I don't see as much in Gen X.
Okay.
I
Okay.
see other things in Gen X.
Okay, what do you see in us? I'm just curious now. I know we're off topic. I'm sorry, guys. We'll get back
Right.
to
And I
off
may be
topic.
biased. I love us Gen X. But I don't know. I see more. I didn't see Gen X in this context when they had littles. Okay. So I will give that caveat, right? Maybe we
Okay.
were all anxious too when we had little children. I wasn't. My friends didn't seem to be, but maybe that was the case. But yeah, I see more anxiety in millennial parents. Well, and also the world and society is different. Social media is much of a bigger factor now
Yeah, yeah.
than it was when, I gave birth the first time in 2005. I think that's when Facebook was launched in 2005, right? This was
Okay.
also new. So the climate is very different. And yeah, I don't see the same anxiety doesn't show up the same in Gen X women as millennial women. I'll say it that way.
Okay.
I won't ever say one has it and one doesn't,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it presents differently.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. We're a little more irritable.
Yeah.
They're a
Just
little
leave us alone.
more,
Just leave us alone. We just trying to live. Leave us alone.
right, exactly. They talk about there being a loneliness epidemic, but look, I have asked Gen X women if they're lonely, and they said no,
No,
I'm not lonely. I want my one or two really close friends, but
exactly.
leave me alone. I'm not lonely.
Exactly. Right. Hit the nail on the head. Just leave us alone. And no, I'm not lonely. Okay. I'm sick of y'all bothering me. That's what it is.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, I got off topic. Anyway, all right. So, Many women feel guilt or shame when they start prioritizing themselves. And this is the one thing that you and I have in common when it comes to our businesses. A lot of our information and what we're trying to focus on overlaps, but they feel, we start to feel shame and guilt once we prioritize ourselves after, of course, decades of caregiving for and being there for everybody else. So how do you help your clients work through those emotions without reverting back to old patterns?
Mm, mm. You know, a couple of things is reframing and understanding the shame and guilt, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also I do a lot of nervous system work with women
Mm-hmm.
to help them regulate and sit with that.
Mm.
And a lot of people have found it helpful to talk about the difference between guilt and shame. You
Okay.
know, guilt is a feeling that typically comes, it's associated with you did something bad or wrong
Mm-hmm.
or that violated your own values.
Okay.
Right? Whereas shame is more of this message that I am bad,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a more internalized type of thing. So there's a big difference between I did something bad versus I am bad.
Okay.
And and that becomes an important piece when I'm helping women navigate the guilt they feel from prioritizing themselves. And we just have to kind of tease it apart. We have to reframe that self-care isn't selfish, it's actually necessary,
Yeah.
right? A lot of us at this older age really get that because our bodies are doing things that are new and different. And we really learn, oh, I have to actually get sleep.
Right. Right.
But younger women who haven't gotten to that point are still sacrificing sleep a lot
Right.
and a lot of other things. And so, while I don't share a lot of personal information with my clients, a lot of them want to know what it's like to be at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will talk with them about that. And I think they find it valuable.
Right.
The guilt and shame, having them recognize that this is a learned response, right? They have learned to not prioritize themselves. And when they start to do something different, it's going to feel some type of way. And that might come up as the guilt or shame. I invite them to explore their own values and
Mm.
beliefs about themselves as people outside of their role as a caregiver, a wife, a mother, a daughter, right? And really, so thinking about my therapy clients in their 30s, that's the time where we actually get to ask these questions, right? Developmentally speaking, the 30s is the time where you start to really dig in and ask, who am I? And what am I doing? What do I want? It's also the time of life where we start to reparent ourselves,
Mm.
meaning giving ourselves the things that our parents weren't able to give us for whatever reason.
Okay.
And let's face it, no parent is 100% perfect. So we all come up with gaps in that. And so the 30s is a time where we start realizing the gaps, learning how to fill them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the self-care piece, right? And then the self-acceptance piece really is an important part of that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And my husband just leaving out to go to the gym. I like you talked about the central nervous system.
Mhm.
And can you just give us maybe a high level overview how that impacts our emotions, our well-being, our health?
Sure, sure. Um, so our brain and our central nervous system, the oldest part of our bodies, right?
Mhm.
Very primitive kind of in its responses. It's designed for efficiency, right? It's
Mhm.
designed to keep us safe. And so, in the day and age that we live in, where for a lot of us, we live in relative safety,
Mhm.
there, I recognize that that's not true for everyone, but for a lot of us, and maybe the women in your audience, we live in relative safety. There's not necessarily a danger around every corner,
Right.
but we're still wired as if there were.
Right.
Okay. And so the efficiency of the system is designed to let us know, hey, alert, danger.
Hmm.
And the dangers are different now. Right. So probably everyone has heard the example where, if you were a caveman and there was a tiger, right, your body is designed to jump into action
Right.
versus sit there and think and pontificate about whether this animal is likely to kill you or not and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Designed to jump into action.
Right.
Well, nowadays, without that type of threat, but with all of the like news and information and turmoil and stuff, our body still responds the same way.
Right.
Okay.
What
And
you mean like that fight or flight?
yes,
Mhm.
so the body responds to those things in a similar way, right?
Mhm.
They perceive it as a threat, and you can have a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode.
Okay.
And now, what that means is if you see something that your body perceives as a threat,
Mhm.
the this part of your brain, right, the most primitive part of your brain, your amygdala, is going to send a signal to your body to do something to keep you safe. The blood flow to the frontal cortex is going to recede to give more resources to that survival part of your brain. So
Mhm.
you're not going to be necessarily thinking logically, you're going to be reacting. Your
Okay.
body's going to be flooded with, all kinds of hormones, adrenaline, and all this kind of stuff. And so, what I see happen is that something like a job loss, something like hearing about job losses,
Right.
something like my kids aren't home anymore, what do I do? That can throw a body, depending on the person, into a response that their amygdala perceives as danger. Right? And it could be shortness of breath. It could be sweating. It could just be racing thoughts. It could be all these different types of things. Okay. So your body is going into a fight or flight response. And part of the therapeutic process that I take therapy clients through is understanding, was letting them talk that out. Yeah, I know this isn't a threat, but my body's acting this way. Or reframing it so that they learn that it's not a threat anymore. And then also, I help them with a type of nervous system kind of technique
Hmm.
I teach them. I help them be able to sit with all that's going on in their body and kind of just let it process. And we do this over and over again so that their body learns to recalibrate what safety feels like
Okay.
when the supposed threat comes up.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What are some signs that a woman's identity has become too enmeshed with her roles in the family? And how can therapy help her begin separating who she is from what she does for others?
Mm. I mean, one of the first things that comes to my mind is what are your boundaries? What do they look like
Hmm.
if they exist? You know, what are the boundaries you have around yourself and your own time? Do you have time to yourself every day? Or how often? And then helping a woman to reframe the boundaries aren't meant to be walls, right? They're doors with locks, and you can control the lock. Um, but I would also say if a woman doesn't know what she wants without checking with everybody else first, we
Mm.
probably need to talk,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
When I was a kid, I remember my mom would come home from work. She was a single mom. She would come home from work. She would walk through the door. She says, to me and my brothers, there was three of us told her I was the youngest. She said, I need 15 minutes. And she would go in her room, close the door, and just decompress in those 15 minutes. And then she
Mm,
would come out and do what she needed to do for the family. But that was very telling of the type of, the woman that she was because she knew I need this time of just coming from 8, 9 hours of work. And now I have another 4 or 5 hours before I can go to bed to take care of these
mhm.
three, children who are, in my home. And I need 15 minutes to myself.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting that, you talking about, just giving some time to yourself, even if
Sure.
it's only 15 minutes,
Yeah.
just to decompress. And I don't think we think about that as mothers, especially, and wives, because we're so busy saying, okay, I got to get home. The kids
Hmm.
got to do their homework. I got to get dinner ready, blah, blah, blah. Maybe there's a little housework that needs to be done, before I can take my shower and crawl into bed, you know.
Sure. Sure. And then, I mean, as you were talking, I was just thinking, I wonder how that felt for you guys to know that to see her do that. Did you feel like, no, I want my mom right now, or was it okay with you? Because I do talk with women who their children will protest, right?
Yeah.
Or younger children, older children. No, I need you right now. And that can be hard to still put up that boundary.
I was raised by a silent generation mothers. So it was like, this is the way it's going to be. And it didn't, but because she had done it for so long, because my father divorced, when I was very young, but she had done it, she had that ritual for so long that, it just became just common knowledge. Mom's going to come in, she needs her 15 minutes, and,
Yeah, yeah,
So now it's
yeah.
just something I don't know. And again, I always say being raised by the silent generation is they they were like they were the silent generation for a reason. Look, this is what I'm telling you, and hey, too bad. This is the way it's
Sure.
gonna be.
Yep, same here. And there wasn't necessarily a lot of explanation being left to interpret behaviors like that
Yeah,
on your own.
yeah.
And, I have some people who maybe have had difficulty with that, right? They've
Mm,
interpreted that as an abandonment or, in the context of whatever their relationship with their
yeah,
parent was.
yeah,
And so, one of the things I work on with myself and with other people is, you know, being able to say, I try to tell my children, they know this now, but yeah, I'm not taking time. It's not that I don't want to be with you, it's I need to be with myself, right? And giving them some language for it
right,
because, as kids, we will interpret things as our fault all the time,
right, right,
and my silent generation parents, they weren't educated on that.
right,
I am. And so I do try to give some context. And I always encourage moms to carve out time. And they will say that, well, but won't they feel left out? Won't they feel abandoned? And I say, well, talk about it,
right,
explain it to them. Yeah, just because I love me doesn't mean I don't love you,
right.
right? And explain the idea of boundaries aren't walls.
Yeah.
And start to give our children this language, and I think that helps giving women the language, them giving their children the language. You see, there's this cycle of increased emotional maturity, I think, when we can name these things.
Do
You
you
know,
think we talk too much though? Do you think we over-explain ourselves as women? Because do you,
I think that can happen.
I think, as a father and a husband, if the father says something, you know, then there's no extra explanation needed, or
Hmm.
there's no extra explanation given, just, from my perspective.
Sure.
But as
Yeah,
a
that's
mother,
definitely, yeah.
we feel like we have to over-explain so we're not hurting everybody's feelings.
I think that definitely happens. I will say, from a personal standpoint, the relationship I have with my daughters is different than the one that they have with their fathers. And so there are some situations that either require a little bit more explanation,
Okay.
because they feel different to her. For me to come in here and close the door, it feels different to her than if her dad did it. So I'm going to
Hmm.
say something.
Hmm.
I'm not going to over explain. I don't need to do a lecture. I don't need to convince or any of that kind of thing. But I
Right.
do need to give words to it
Okay. Okay.
and check in if I need to.
Mm.
But you're right. There's definitely that double standard. And, some of that is imposed on us. And some of that is just the nature of, well, I have a daughter and she's very bonded with me because of how how we've related over the last 20 years, 15 years, and 11 years. Those are the ages of my little ones.
Okay.
So that relationship requires something a little different. And I think that's okay. But you do bring up a really good point. I'm not a fan of women feeling like they need to. No is a complete sentence,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And and it's okay to do that too. But we're trying to balance the firmness with the love.
Right. Right. So, how can family dynamics shift once a woman begins reclaiming her own identity?
There's going to be resistance. 9.5 times out of 10.
9.5 times. Okay.
You
Okay.
know, and so resistance is absolutely normal, especially when we're talking about a family system. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm trained in family systems, so that's how I'm going to talk about it. In
Okay.
a system is a system will always crave homeostasis. That means a system always wants to stay the same. So when one person, mommy, starts trying to change things up, the system's going to be like, wait a minute, let's get this back. Or wait a minute, who am I now that you're changing? Right?
Mm.
There's all of that kind of stuff. So one, everyone needs to know resistance is normal, expected. You don't have to tell yourself a story about it.
Okay.
Being that means they don't this, that means that it's just resistance,
Okay.
right? Let's look at resistance as neutral. It just happens. It's just part of the process.
Okay.
That's kind of like the first thing I like for people to know when that happens,
Okay.
you know.
There's also a grief component in this process. How
Mhm.
does the grief process show up when women realize they've lost touch with their personal dreams and desires?
When you bring up grief, I think a lot of people's minds may immediately go to the 5 stages of grief,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think we now know that grief doesn't necessarily move in that order, the linear stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression,
Mm-hmm.
and acceptance. It doesn't necessarily move in those stages. But there's also this other process of grief that I prefer to use as a framework when talking about it. It's restoration, right? And loss.
Okay.
And we oscillate back and forth, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you are changing, when you're realizing that you've lost touch with your dreams or goals, that's sad.
Mm-hmm.
If you've lost part of yourself or lost touch with part of yourself, there's a sadness there. But look, there's another side. There's the restoration. There's the joy of rediscovery, right? There's the
Right.
joy of trying new things. Sometimes the dreams don't die. They're just waiting to finally show up. Right. That's
Mm.
why I say I'm the Olivia Pope of Gen X women with unhandled dreams. It lights me up like nothing else to help someone either rediscover a dream that they thought was dead or find a new one.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what we're here for at this age and stage, to light it back up.
Light it back up.
You can grieve what you lost and you
Yeah.
can still celebrate what's ahead for you, right? The grief and the possibility, they can sit at the same table at
Mm.
the same exact time.
Okay.
There's room for all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How can women honor that grief without getting stuck in it?
Give it space, give it voice.
Mm.
I think one of the things that keeps us stuck is not talking about it.
Mm.
There's this idea of disenfranchised grief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that means it's not talked about. It's not seen as a grief. It's not acknowledged as a loss. This happens in other areas and stages. For example, if a woman loses a pregnancy very, very early on,
Mm-hmm.
often society is just like, oh, we'll just try again. But
Right.
that loss can be very big for her. And so it's a disenfranchised grief that she's experiencing because society doesn't really acknowledge it, right? There's no rituals that
Right.
people talk about if you lose a pregnancy early on,
Right.
and if you think about any kind of grief that is acknowledged in society, there's a ritual surrounding it. So then think about all the griefs that we do have where
Mm.
no one is doing anything. Those are probably the ones that are disenfranchised.
Should we talk about it with our husbands, or who should we talk about? Who should we talk to when we're, you know,
Mhm.
feeling stuck? Should it be our husband? Should it be other women, or just whoever you feel comfortable with?
I
Because
would say that part.
okay,
Whoever you feel safe to share that part of you with.
okay,
Um, and if you don't necessarily feel safe sharing that with your partner, it would be great if you could get to a place of safety so that you could.
okay, okay,
These conversations come up a lot in therapy, in women's circles, those types of things. Those containers often feel very safe. Grief groups, if you can find one, that's great. But if we're talking about disenfranchised grief, grief that no one's really acknowledging, that might be harder. And
okay,
I will say, because of the tender nature of grief, if anyone is watching this and feeling some feelings come up around that, there are places you can go for help. There are a wide variety of places you could go for help, and I'd be happy to be a resource if someone is looking for a support group
okay,
around a grief or a loss. And I just want to make sure to offer some kind of a container for people if they're watching this right now.
okay. And I'll have that information. I'll have your information in the description below. So,
Hmm.
um, so can you talk about how culture and societal expectations, especially for Black women, complicate the process of rediscovering self, especially after 20 years, and I'm saying 20 plus years in
Mm.
marriage and motherhood?
Hmm. I mean, it all seems to complicate it, doesn't it? There's the trope or the myth of the strong Black woman.
Mm, mhm.
There's plenty of myths about what it means to be a woman,
Right.
right? And a lot of these things are based on one idea, right? Just one idea,
Right.
and they're very constricting.
Mm,
Um, Black women have that double burden, right? The race, the gender.
right.
If society is devaluing you, how does that affect how you value yourself? Um, if you've been raised in a community where you are supposed to be there for everyone, right? Everyone gets to
Right.
rely on you, then yeah, I mean, what is your value to yourself? That's going to be a lot to carry and unpack. Um, I've had a lot of women, around our age who will say they woke up from the matrix.
Ah,
They feel
right.
they feel like
Yes,
they've woken
that's
up from right? And
yes.
they feel like everyone else is still in the matrix. The
Right.
matrix where this Black woman owes her life to everybody else.
Right.
And it does feel like waking up and seeing things completely different sometimes to extract yourself from that.
Right.
Um, and so just affirming, right, that there is systemic oppression that plays a role in this. Um, but we don't have to victimize ourselves,
Right.
right? We can lay claim to our own sovereignty, our own joy, our own softness, our rest. And maybe we have to be that trailblazer that
Right.
gets to define what that is.
I like
Um,
that.
and finding a community where that value is really respected, you know.
How do generational messages about strength and sacrifice impact our journey or impact this journey for Black women?
Sure. Well, I mean, those messages, they come in there. That's the input, right? Trying to shape you.
Hmm.
Um, from the time that we're born, we start developing our schemas, our ways of believing,
Right.
right? They're informed by the people closest to us, then the people next out, and then the society.
Right.
And at some point in time, we come to this idea where it's like, oh, let me decide if I really do believe that.
Yeah.
You know, whose value is this? Whose voice is this?
Right.
And really start checking that against what your internal compass is saying. It's important to go through that self-inquiry process, the self-reflection,
Mm. Yeah.
and really start teasing that stuff apart. Because we're all affected by the voices from without. You can't escape that.
Right.
But you don't have to just absorb it all your life without having some say. Because the messages are going to try to get in.
Right. Right. As women begin this rediscovery, what role does self-compassion play in navigating identity shifts, and how can they develop it when they've been self-critical or self-sacrificing for most of their lives?
Mm. Self-compassion, I have found, can be so hard for women to give themselves. Oh my gosh, I think it's key. I think self-compassion is really key.
Mm-hmm.
And to help women bridge that gap and develop it, we start with the other, right? Women are so other oriented,
Right.
right? And so we start with the other. How would you speak to your best friend? Any person that they have a good and healthy relationship with becomes the model now. How would you speak to this person? Like, and I have people literally say what they would say to them,
Mm.
right? And then
Right.
what does it feel like to say that to yourself? I also bring nervous system work into this. What part of your body reacts when you say this compassionate thing to yourself?
Mm.
That can give a lot of information. I mean, maybe it's your heart, maybe it's your stomach, right? There's just tension in your face. What goes on in your body as you start to give yourself this kindness? We're connecting the mind and the body all the time.
Do you,
Um,
I was going to ask, do you find that it's hard for women? Yes, you can say, you can verbalize it,
mhm,
but to really feel it,
mhm.
to do you find it's hard for women to, yeah, I can say it all day long that, all these positive things about myself, but to actually feel it
Sure.
within.
Oh, yeah. It's a process that takes some time,
Yeah.
right? It's a process to take some time to internalize that and replace the old scripts, the old schemas, which is why I don't just do mindset work with people. It's why I incorporate the nervous system work.
Right.
Because when we can say the thing, we know what to say,
Right.
but when there's a disconnect between what you know
Hmm.
to be true or think and what your body is saying is true, that means we need to recalibrate your nervous system to this new belief.
Mm,
And that takes a lot of time. I do that with therapy clients, but also do that in a non-clinical way with coaching clients,
okay.
to bridge that disconnect. There's something going on in the brain
Right.
and the body that leaves
Right.
that disconnect. Yeah, we know the right things to say,
Right.
but to really internalize it is a process that can take some guidance and take some time. When you've been conditioned one way, right? When you've been conditioned to self-sacrifice,
Hmm.
and think how many years we get conditioned.
Like you said, we come into the world with roles,
Yeah.
with predetermine a role as a woman, as a black woman. So yeah, from birth,
Hmm.
being conditioned.
Yeah. Conditioned, conditioned, conditioned. So if
Yeah.
you want to decondition or
Mm.
unlearn that stuff,
Right.
it's not going to happen overnight.
Right. Do you ever use um when and I did it for over 2 years at night, listening to certain things while I'm sleeping in order to get
Mm.
into that subconscious level of kind of reprogramming and thinking about myself differently, how I feel about myself, getting rid of certain fears. Do you use that, or suggest that to your women in your practice?
Sure. It's not something I use personally. It is definitely something I present as an option
Yeah.
to people. I do really love to use the tools that my clients have already used that have worked and whatever they are inclined towards. And so, yeah, the subconscious reprogramming,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, is something that I would recommend
Yeah.
someone to give a try,
Yeah.
how that
That's
works.
yeah, yeah. Because I did that for a couple of years, and I do it periodically now when I'm starting to feel anxious. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
there's something going on here,
Hmm.
and and it really worked. It really
Yeah.
did. It really did change the way I look at myself and how I feel about myself, and and I don't think it. And also another thing, I don't think that you can do it once or twice, or it's an ongoing thing.
Hmm.
For me, I don't think it'll ever be something that I stop. I might not do it every night. I might do it once a week, once a month, or however I'm feeling. But it's not something that it's an ongoing learning. I guess that's the way to look at it. You're going to continue to learn and continue to do these things to help you grow, continue to grow. Because
Sure.
hopefully people don't look at 50 plus year olds and say, okay, well, you're not, you can't learn anymore, you're not learning anymore. We should be learning until the day we are put in that grave. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, when we're talking about self-care, that's a practice.
yeah.
And that's something that's not just one and done. Healing is never just one and done,
Oh
right?
no.
Healing is
No.
lifelong.
No, it's
So,
ongoing.
yeah, it
Yeah,
makes sense that you would use that periodically. And I love that you can tell when you need to use that tool,
yeah, yeah.
right? Oh, you're like, okay, I'm feeling this way. Here's a tool I know works. Let me do
Right,
it.
right.
And I love that. I want women to have a toolbox.
Yeah, yeah.
All these different things that they know they can pull out and know when to use them.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
How do you help women quiet that inner critic when it's been loud for so long?
Oh, we got to dig into it, right? I like to know who does whose voice is this?
Mm.
And it surprises me how quickly they can answer. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
It's like, oh, yep, I hear that voice. It's this person, so identifying it
wow.
is a huge first step because often once they identify whose voice that is,
Hmm.
it's like, I don't know, it's like some realization comes up. Oh, that's not me, that's not mine. That's like, and they get some distance from it
Got
when they can say whose voice it is,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know. Journaling is something that I'm always going to encourage people to do. And
Mm.
so do a lot of journaling work to address that inner critic,
Okay.
even addressing the person whose voice it is, writing unsent letters to that person about what they said, deciding, well, what voice do you want to hear in your head? Using affirmations like, I harbor a kind and loving environment inside my mind,
Mm.
right? And remembering that that's a commitment to yourself,
Okay.
you
I
know,
like that.
um, really just reframing that voice. Also, here's another aspect that I like to bring up is that inner critic is the is functioning in a role for you. Often that voice or that part of you has been trying to keep you safe from something.
Yeah.
And if we can identify that and honor that, it's trying to help you, however misguided it is. That inner critic has maybe been trying to keep you safe from being abandoned or rejected.
Mm.
And that's been important in your life to not be abandoned and rejected. And yet we're here at a point where, is that helpful anymore?
Right.
No? Okay. How can we let that go? How can we let that inner critic know that we don't need its criticism anymore, that we've got this?
Yeah.
And we are safe enough now to be kind. right? Kindness and self-compassion, they can feel like threats at first. You
Okay.
know, that inner critic may keep you slaving on the job to keep your job.
Yeah.
Well, in this day and age, for some people, that they need to do that. And so we thank the inner critic for helping us. But
Right.
it's time to put a boundary around you.
Yeah.
Because maybe I want to show up differently now. Maybe I want to feel differently.
Okay. For women who say, I don't even know what I like anymore, what therapeutic tools or exercises can help them reconnect with their authentic self?
We're going to say journaling again. You
Okay.
know, for sure, free journaling, of course, but even maybe more structured journaling, like write down 20 things that you used to enjoy. You
Hmm.
know, I get a lot of moms in my practice who no idea.
Wow.
I remember there was a time where I stopped reading books. It was almost as if I forgot reading for pleasure even existed when I was early in my motherhood journey. And I'm a bookworm, but there were several years where I didn't read. I didn't think about reading. I mean, unless it was a parenting book. It was weird. And then one day it felt like I woke up to books again.
Mm,
It's so strange to have experienced that. It feels like completely different like chapters, right, in my life. A lot of us we get so ensconced in these roles that we do forget, right? So going through the effort of writing down 20 things you used to enjoy, writing down 10 things you might like to try,
right.
daydreaming. I
Mm,
encourage women to spend time daydreaming. Just see where your mind goes, right? We're just so constantly busy, busy, busy and
busy,
scrolling and
busy.
things like that. Let's
Yeah.
spend some time daydreaming. If I have to give a woman homework to let herself, the women will do the homework. Okay. So I will make assignments. Let's daydream.
Yeah.
Go on trips by yourself. I had a mom who she scheduled her next 6 months of trips.
Nice.
Yeah, I
Nice.
love that she was able to do that, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, exploring, spending time alone,
Yeah.
and doing nothing, spending some time in silence.
And that's that's
Um,
that's hard for us to just do nothing. And
mhm.
because then you do nothing and your brain is still going and you want to try and calm that down too. And it's hard. It's not easy because,
Yeah, yeah.
say 40 years, of constantly going and doing, or 30, whatever, maybe
Mhm.
30 years. I'll say 30 years, if you're in your 50s of constantly going and doing, it's hard to break that habit, but you're right, it's so important, especially for your overall well-being. It's so
Sure,
important.
sure.
So how do you help clients recognize the difference between what they truly enjoy or what they've been conditioned to enjoy?
Mm. Well, I just ask the questions, and they usually will come to that realization themselves. If they're one of the guiding questions is, does this bring you pleasure, right? Is this draining or life-giving, right? When
Mm.
you participate in this activity, does it feel like it gives you life or like it drains you,
Yeah.
right? So that would be a good one if
Mm.
to help you figure out if that's something that you borrowed from someone else or that was put on you, given to you, or if it's really yours.
Okay. I like that one. Okay. So once women start changing, there's often pushback. How do you help clients handle resistance or pushback from partners, their children, extended family, when they start setting these boundaries?
Hmm. And we touched on this a little before. First, I will tell them to expect it, right? Don't be surprised.
Yeah.
And let's work on not being offended by it. It's just part of the process.
Because that would be me. I've given you 30 years. What do you, yeah, see, that would have been me.
Right? What? I'm not allowed to change?
Yeah, and yes, that would be me.
Oh,
My husband, yeah, I'm so thankful. My husband's so patient with me. What? Hand on the hip. He's like, oh,
mhm.
go.
Yeah.
And you just sit there. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, and even noticing those reactions is helpful. If a client gets to do this, if a person chooses to go through this process in therapy, then it's helpful because they can give me all those reactions and we can kind of sift it out, right? And some people will realize, well, I'm projecting my own thoughts onto this person, right? Because I thought I wasn't allowed to change, and now here I am changing.
Right.
Right. Often that happens. But so yeah, first expect it, expect that there will be resistance. People will start to test the old you. Then you get to learn what boundaries to put up, right? What boundaries to teach people.
Yeah.
It just teaches people how to treat you, right? And how to love you and how to value you.
Right.
Using I statements, probably anyone who's ever heard a therapist talk has heard about I statements.
Yeah.
They're really helpful, right? I'm making space for myself.
Right.
That doesn't mean I love you less.
Right.
I feel I I feel like I've lost touch with myself when I give so much to the family, so I will be making more space for myself.
And
Not
those, I was gonna say, don't those I statements keep keep the other person from feeling like you're attacking because you're saying I. Is that correct? They don't feel, the other person doesn't feel like they're being attacked or being blamed for whatever's going on in, your life.
right. And hopefully they don't. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't know how
Oh
people
yeah.
will react,
Yeah.
but you're right. It's the person taking responsibility for their own well-being
Right. Okay.
and not putting the blame on the other person. The other person may still feel blamed.
Yeah.
That's on them. They can
Right.
go talk to their therapist about how to deal with that.
Right.
But the I statements really do help you kind of locate everything inside yourself, locate the change inside yourself and help
Okay.
you to not to help you not blame other people, right? Because
Okay.
you have taught people how to treat you
Mm,
so far.
yeah.
So now we're going to have to reteach them, and that may take some time.
Right.
I also love scripts. So besides the I statements that we can practice, even other scripts of things that you want to say. I was talking about this with someone the other day. I love a script. I use them myself. Writing down what you think you want to say and just kind of seeing how that feels, right? Or practicing it with your therapist, role playing with your therapist, writing it down, rewriting it until it feels more natural or sounds like you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can be really helpful. It helps you also prepare and kind of even visualize that conversation
Mm-hmm.
so that when you actually have the conversation, your nervous system is a little more regulated because you've kind of visualized or practiced beforehand.
Okay.
Let's see, I already said role playing.
Mm-hmm.
Talking with someone first because there could be this fear of abandonment. If I change, is
Oh,
it safe to change? Really is the question, right? Is it safe to change? Will I be abandoned, rejected if I don't show up this way anymore?
right. Okay.
And my hope would be that you could have a conversation like that with whoever's being impacted by your change.
Right.
I'm worried that you might not accept me if I don't show up this way anymore. Can we talk about that?
Mm, yeah. Okay. So how do you prepare women for the discomfort of other people not liking their change? 'Cause like you said, there's going to be discomfort. You got to prepare for it. So how do you prepare for that?
Yeah. Well, it's these things. It's the journaling, the scripting, the
Okay.
practicing, the role playing, the nervous system work, the
Mm,
preparation. So just talking about it, thinking about it in advance
okay.
is very helpful versus stuffing all your feelings inside and then waiting until they explode to someone one day about how you want to change.
Ah,
Yeah,
and
let's
that's why I'm in therapy now.
sure, absolutely. Yeah. And good for you for doing that, right? Good for you for recognizing that there was a place that you wanted more support in so you could
Yeah.
show up the way you want to show up,
Right. Right.
you know?
Okay. There's also mental health layers. What's the connection between identity shift in midlife and challenges like depression, anxiety, or a sense of emptiness, and how can those be addressed in therapy?
Mm. Well, if you think in terms of what we generally know as the symptoms of depression, right? The extreme sadness or the symptoms of anxiety, the worry, or the empty feeling. We all experience those feelings.
Hmm.
And so some of those feelings might come up, will likely come up as your identity is changing. You
Hmm.
may question whether this is depression or not,
Okay.
but just know all of these emotions
Hmm.
are part of this process. Sometimes what looks like depression
Hmm.
is really just your soul saying, I need to breathe,
I like that. Yeah.
you know? And sometimes maybe it is a clinical depression and you would want to get mental health support on that. But midlife in general, midlife, it's not a crisis, it's a crossroads,
I
right?
like that. Yes, I like that. Because it's
You're
not a
crossing it.
crisis.
No, it's not. It can feel that way, right? Because all the emotions are going on, your hormones are doing crazy stuff,
Right.
right? You may think you're crazy. Like there's all this stuff out there, and maybe we haven't been able to see someone go through it in a healthy way. And so it's hard to know what side we're landing on. Um, but
It's
yeah.
it's interesting. And I was sitting here thinking that you hear that men go through midlife crisis.
Hmm.
Back in the day, you get that new car or the new woman, but you go through your midlife crisis. But there's nothing, but when women go through, oh, she's going through menopause. And
Hmm.
it's more of a negative, oh, she's going through menopause. Yeah, he's just going through his midlife crisis. He'll be, so
Yeah, acceptance.
that
There's more
that
acceptance for it, isn't there?
right, right. And but I like the way you say it's not a crisis. It might feel like it because you're going through something that you've never gone through before and you're not sure how to handle it, but it's just a crossroads. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. We've got to stop saying it's a crisis. It's not a crisis. It is it's just you're I don't know. I think at this stage I, am way better than I was 20 years ago.
Yeah, me
You
too.
know, some people might not like it because you're changing, you're evolving, changing, however you want to look at it, into a different person, and you're coming back to, I think, who you were truly meant to be because you're letting go of a lot of you're letting go of a lot of the roles that you were told that you had to perform. You're
Hmm.
starting to develop and become, if you want to say a different woman, yeah, you're becoming a different woman. I say we're just growing and evolving and becoming better. But yeah, it's a crossroads. I like that. I
Yeah,
like that. It's
absolutely.
very, to me,
Absolutely.
that's very spiritual when you say crossroads. It's very
Well,
spiritual.
and that's my personal point of view too about life. It's what helps me be resilient is to see life as this journey, right? And to think of things in terms of crossroads and thresholds and portals and things like that. And
Yeah.
that can be helpful for someone too if they have a framework for thinking about life that
Yeah.
supports them. We call midlife a crisis because there's the irritability, right? You're feeling empty. Maybe you're feeling lost, right? Maybe you're restless, or maybe you're not even motivated to do things. And those are all like negative viewed things. We view
Hmm.
those things negatively.
Right.
But I mean, you could probably say that about adolescence too. There's all of those things in
Right.
adolescence too.
Right.
And maybe some people consider adolescence a crisis, but it's just a normal stage of development.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
it's another crossroads, right?
Yeah.
Midlife is just another
Another
crossroads
crossroads. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So talk about your before I ask you the last questions, I want you to talk about your soft landing circle.
Sure. Yes. So the soft landing circle is a 12-week support group and nervous system recalibration group that I created specifically for Black women moving abroad. I I was seeing people say that they were being left without mental health support once they moved abroad. And so I started researching what the options were for them and saw that there weren't very many or that they were really hard to find. And then just started talking to more and more women, getting their feedback about what they felt like they needed. And I created it. And so I put together this space. It's a private space inside my larger community of women. It's a private container exclusively for Black women, whereas my larger community is women of all races. This one is exclusively for Black women um, because we're at a point in time where that's what's needed.
Yeah.
I'm happy that I was able to create this container. So we're going to have 12 weeks of asynchronous and live support. So asynchronous being like, chat or text support in between live meetings where people just get to share the emotions of what's going on with them.
Hmm.
And live and in between, I'll be guiding them through how to reset their nervous system, how to recalibrate, and just doing some emotion coaching inside that group.
So you said it's for women who've already moved,
Who are moving.
who are moving. Okay.
Yeah, so I have some women who have moved. I have some women who are packing, and I have some women who are still trying to plan their move abroad.
Right.
And so I noticed across all of these different stages, there are various levels of grief and
Mm.
self-doubt and just all of the emotions, but particular to the move abroad. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So for the women who are already abroad, and because you said you looked into seeing if there was like support, mental support once they moved,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that they're dealing with once they have moved abroad? Loneliness, or what are some of the,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the top three or four would be, well, the grief of the transition, right? And the people who are still back home, right? Not being with them.
yeah,
Loneliness, right? Which is really connected to that. Just all the emotions that come with reinventing yourself,
okay.
and being like a stranger in a strange land.
Okay.
Those are some of the top things that they are dealing with.
Okay. And so is this just so it's a 12 week program. So you guys meet once a week, once a month.
We will be meeting once a month up to every 2 weeks. Does that make sense?
Okay. Hmm.
So right now it's planned out to be about every 2 weeks with the option for me to add in additional support
Oh,
if needed. Depending on people's time zones and stuff, I have a lot of room to add in extra stuff
okay.
if needed. And this is one of the things I really love about having created this group and it not being a clinical group and I'm not being a therapist to the group is we have a little more flexibility and creativity in how to meet these very real needs. They're
Oh,
not necessarily mental health needs, they're normal human
right.
emotional needs that everyone has. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds amazing because you and I have talked about it before, and so are you still accepting people, or is it closed?
Registration ended last week so that I could start getting ducks in a row to start. If someone sees this and feels like this is, really aligned with where they are right now and where they want to go, I would just ask them to reach out to me and see where we are in the process. And if I add them in, that might be a possibility. Or if I open up space for a new cohort, that might be a possibility too.
Okay, okay, and I'll make sure again that your information's in the description so they can reach out to you on that. Okay, so well, I have two last questions.
Two last questions.
So for the women listening right now who feels completely lost, what's the very first step you recommend she take to start reclaiming her sense of self?
Very, very first step.
Or a tangible action she can take within the next 24 hours?
Okay. Well,
No.
first step, give yourself permission to even be asking these questions. Give yourself permission to question and be curious.
Okay.
A lot of us don't even do that. We gaslight ourselves, we shut ourselves down. Nope, I should just be happy.
Right.
I hear that so much. So the first step
Yes.
would be to give yourself permission to just question things. It's okay to question the
Hmm.
status quo.
Right.
It's okay to question how things have always been done. And I use air quotes because there's no always, right?
Right.
Things
Right.
have been done this long and then they've been done. So
Right.
that first, um, if if a woman likes to journal, or even if she doesn't, please journal. Just open up those pages and ask yourself those questions on the page and start to name what you feel like you've lost.
Mm, okay.
What do I miss? What do I miss about me?
Mm,
What
okay.
what do I wish I could say about me or about my life?
Mm,
Begin asking those questions. Look for some books, right? I personally love, there's two books by an author that I really recommend a lot.
mm,
The author is Lisa Marciano. She
okay.
has a book, I'm looking at her books right now. She has a book called Motherhood and another one called The Vital Spark. I'm actually
Mm,
doing a book club on The Vital Spark right now, and it's available for free on my community. Both of them the author uses fairy tales to
okay.
kind of bring to light the different um, crossroads we go through as women and to really help us understand all those different parts of ourselves that maybe we've put away because society told us to,
Right.
and that we can bring back and how they would be helpful. Those books are really great books. They also have discussion questions in them too. So if a person feels challenged at just, journaling on a blank page,
Right.
maybe the books could offer some ideas, some insights, or some questions to start with.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, self-inquiry, right? Self-reflection, that's where we have to start.
Okay.
We have to turn inward.
Yeah. And sometimes
Mhm.
that's hard, but you're right. That's where it starts, you know, looking inward.
Yeah.
So my last question for you, what does it mean to be unapologetically 50 plus for you?
Mm. Well, I will be turning 50 this December.
Yeah, I
Um,
forgot you was a December. Well, okay. 50, 40, 45 plus.
yeah. Yeah, 49 and a half.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you use the word unapologetic. I love that because we should not. Okay, I won't say should. We don't have to apologize for who and what we are, right? But what it means to me is an opportunity to reclaim our power as women. We are so powerful and influential.
Mm,
No matter what our role is, no matter what our job has been, the feminine force is huge.
mm,
And yeah, and so to me, it means reclaiming that power, that fire,
yeah.
however that looks, you
Yeah.
know.
I like that. Well, thank you. Miss Tori, thank you so much. I wanted to tell you also my granddaughter's name. We call her Tori. Her name is Victoria, but we call her Tori, and that's how we
Oh,
spell her name too.
yeah, I love that.
So thank you for joining me. This has been an amazing conversation. I definitely want to have you back on at some point because you're so full of wisdom and just, your spirit is so, just so soft and so calming.
Oh, thank you so much.
And when is your birthday again? You said December. So I was like, oh, you're another December. You're like the third
Yeah.
December lady I've met doing these podcasts. You're December
16.
16th. Okay. So yeah, you understand Sagittarius.
Yes, absolutely. Full on.
So thank you again for joining me. I truly appreciated this conversation.
Yeah.
And you guys, her information will be in the description. So please, if you think that you need coaching, therapy, hit this lady up because she is amazing. Again, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'm still building this community and I'd love to have you guys involved. So, all right, you guys, thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.